I want to welcome you guys back to another episode of Pistons Talk Podcast presented by FanDuel. In tonight's episode, we have three total segments we're going to be going over and covering for you guys. Segment one will be about Bennedict Mathurin and the Detroit Pistons interest level. Segment two will be Cade Cunningham and Kevin Durant. They're hanging out this offseason. Is there any meaning behind that? In segment three, I got to let some steam off. You guys will see why I'm just kind of a little bit annoyed with just Pistons fans this offseason. But let's get into segment one. Bennedict Mathurin and the interest level from the Detroit Pistons. This is from Brett Siegel and his podcast over at clutchpoints.com. Let's give it a listen.
Bennedict Mathurin, though, there are teams out there that do have interest. One that we can report that had conversations with him in his camp in Las Vegas was the Detroit Pistons. They're a team that's not done yet. They're still looking at ways where they can possibly further improve their roster. And so maybe Bennedict Mathurin is a guy that they could buy low on. Maybe it's a 3-year, $30 million contract or something in that range where they can bring him in, pair him with Cade Cunningham and the other pieces that they brought in during free agency. They're the new look Pistons, the reigning one seed in the Eastern Conference, making big moves, but they still have their Jalen Duran situation to figure out. And until that's solved, I don't think that they're really going to look to do anything else. So what are some other teams that could go after Mathurin? Are there even any other teams out there? And I think that it comes down to the Clippers' point of view of what would you be looking for in a sign and trade? Is there a guy out there on a bad contract that you could bring in and he would actually fit a role, whether that's in the front court or on the wing if you can't get Peyton Watson? So those are kind of the conversations that people are having around the league right now. There's nothing definitive yet of what's going to happen with Bennedict Mathurin. Just some talk of that the Clippers want to bring him back, but with these other situations playing out, a sign and trade is still kind of on the table here.
So I kind of want to go over what Brett said with the Bennedict Mathurin piece. Obviously, restricted free agent, much like Jalen Duran. Clippers haven't signed him. What's kind of going on there, right? The Pistons talked to his camp, and there was some interest level there. Obviously, that's not really uncommon. A lot of teams, executives, and players go out to the Las Vegas Summer League. It is a huge party. It's kind of just like linking up with like your coworkers and your friends out there. It's a big party. So that's really not uncommon. It's interesting though that the Pistons did talk to his camp about possibly doing a sign and trade because the Clippers haven't really signed him. There's interest level with Peyton Watson on their front. It's probably like the worst kept secret right now with the Los Angeles Clippers. They really like Peyton Watson, and the Denver Nuggets haven't really done anything with his restricted free agency either. So I know the shooting guard room is probably the most stacked room, probably the room that we have the most depth. Like we just did a depth chart video last weekend, and I counted 6 shooting guards on the active roster between like Kevin Herter, Chaz Lanier, Gary Harris, Duncan Robinson, Isaiah Joe. Like there's so many, but I think he's at least worth mentioning because I think the one thing with Mathurin is he's a bucket getter. He's a guy that put up 17 and a half points a game last year. Obviously, got drafted by the Pacers at 6. We all know that Jaden Ivey got drafted by the Pistons at 5. And I still remember Mathurin saying you're gonna regret that one day because he really wanted to come to Detroit at number 5, and obviously the Pistons elected not to draft him. But I, as a Piston fan, like I wouldn't be opposed to Bennedict Mathurin because I think he's a guard that can score at all 3 levels. The one knock with him is just defense, but like I really don't care if he's an average defender when you have guys like Asar Thompson on the wing that could, possibly hide some of his defensive deficiencies. But I think a bucket getter like a Ben Math does make a whole lot of sense for the Detroit Pistons. It would obviously be a sign and trade because where the Pistons are at, they don't really have a whole lot of maneuvering with the cap space. But like, who are you trading out to the Clippers in a possible sign and trade? And like, what is the deal going to be? I know Brett had kind of floated out a structure of like 3 years, 30 million, which would be like $10 million AAV, like an annual average salary. But like, I wouldn't be opposed to a Bennedict Mathurin, a guy that, put up 17.6 points a game with the Clippers and the Pacers last year. I like him as a player. I think that is another bucket getter that you could have off the bench, or if you want to start him next to Cade Cunningham in the backcourt, really depends on like what JP Bickerstaff would do if he was here in Detroit. But I've always liked him from afar. I still remember the Ivy versus Mathurin and Shaden Sharp debates in the 2022 NBA draft with a lot of you guys during the summertime. Like we all had our fandom with like where we planted our flag. I personally planted my flag with Ivy. Um, Obviously, I did not see what was going to happen with him. With what transpired this year. Wish him well. Hope he's doing well, but I would like Mathurin. I would. I think he's a guard that just really flourishes in half court sets. Once he gets it going, the rim is just like 10 feet big to him. Like he's just such a unique half court scorer. Can shoot threes, get to the free throw line, and like the shit talking, I think kind of fits well with just Detroit in general. Like he kind of plays with an edge as well, which I think a lot of fans would actually like because we like those players that can drop a cool 15 and talk shit and just like get the crowd pumped up at home games. But I think Ben Math would actually be a pretty good culture fit for Detroit as well, because I definitely think he kind of has like that bad boy edge and that bad boy vibe that we like with their players. But it really depends what the Clippers would want in a sign and trade, right? Obviously, he's restricted. Like we're dealing with the same thing with Jalen Duren right now with restricted free agency. Unless that they're kind of floating out the idea with sign and trade, I don't know what's going to happen. I think the Clippers are still holding out to see if they can swing a trade for Peyton Watson personally. But Denver obviously wants to re-sign Peyton Watson, and it's just kind of like a restricted free agency stalemate. Like I think we can all, as Pistons fans, understand what a headache that is because we're going through the same thing with JD right now. But did want to bring him up on the podcast today. Obviously, I don't know if there's still interest level from the Detroit Pistons. Obviously, Summer League started on July 9th and it ended on the 19th. So that was like last week to 2 weeks ago. Is there still interest level from Trajan Langdon and the Detroit Pistons front office? Who knows? Who knows? But did want to bring it up and talk about it with you guys for around like 5 minutes or so. But let me know what you guys think of Bennedict Mathurin. Like, would you be for the Pistons possibly getting in a sign and trade to bring him in at the shooting guard position? Does he start? Does he come off the bench? I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts and opinions on Bennedict Mathurin and the Pistons' possible interest level. But I want to get into segment two. And, with it being off season, it's extremely slow season. Obviously, we don't have like any real basketball until preseason, and I think preseason it's like what, end of September, early October, so still a couple months out from that. And there's some pictures that were surfacing on the internet, obviously Kevin Durant and Cade Cunningham, and like, do these really have any meaning? Now, obviously, the one picture Kevin Durant posted on his IG of him and Cade sitting together, and the second picture is you can see Cade standing right next to KD, and then there's Drake and Sexy Red for some reason. I don't know why. But Cade and Kevin Durant are hanging out together. Does this really mean anything? KD is obviously a really big mentor to Cade Cunningham. He's been a mentor to him even before he entered the NBA. I remember a interview that I'm pretty sure you can look it up on YouTube of KD just chopping it up with Cade when he was at Oklahoma State and pissed off that he didn't go to the University of Texas of where KD is from. I mean, these are both Texas born kids. Like they're both from, similar areas. Obviously, Cade has always taken a liking to Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant has kind of been like a mentor and a big brother to Cade. Now, obviously, I think with the LeBron James news today, and then that'll be segment three and the kind of like my little bit of rant of letting off some steam. I think people are anticipating that the Pistons are going to try to make a swing for Kevin Durant, try to make a trade for Kevin Durant because Cade Cunningham's hanging out with him in the offseason. I don't really think that. I just think it's just more of a friendship and a mentorship. Obviously, I think a lot of Pistons fans are like, stay away from KD. He is in his ear about to Cade to possibly. This is what fans think. Like KD's probably in Cade's ear of getting out of Detroit. Like I don't really see that. Obviously, like the offseason's been really underwhelming, and we haven't gotten that like secondary creator or secondary star next to Cade. At the end of the day, I think it's just those two hanging out. It's a player that he looks up to and a player that has dropped a lot of wisdom and knowledge to Cade, I would assume. Like, I don't have a personal relationship with Cade Cunningham. I'm not going to pretend I do. But I did kind of want to just talk about this picture because I see a lot of Pistons fans kind of speculating that Cade is trying to recruit KD to Detroit. And I know there were rumors a couple of weeks ago that the Pistons tried to make a swing for KD. Obviously, Houston didn't want to do the deal because they didn't want to send out Kevin Durant and Alperen Sengun in a trade. But I think it's just worth talking about, worth mentioning that, Cade does have a long-lasting relationship with KD as kind of like a big brother and a mentor, which, hey, a lot of players do. A lot of players look up to older generation players like KD, and kind of makes me feel old because I'm viewing KD is like OG or Unk, for example, because I grew up watching, KD coming out of high school and then when I was in college for a little bit. But I think it's cool that KD is kind of taking Cade under his wing and just, kind of showing him the ropes, which I don't really think Cade needs that, but it's just probably a relationship that he like really, respects and admires out of him. But I did want to talk about it. I understand Pistons fans being a little bit worried that KD could say like, "Yo, get out of Detroit," because we've seen him do it with OKC, we've seen him do it with Golden State, did it with Brooklyn, then Phoenix. Now he's in Houston. Like, I understand it from a cautionary standpoint with Pistons fans because they're like, "Yo, like we finally got a franchise player. We finally got a guy that is MVP conversations. Like, don't want him leaving Detroit." Gate has made it very known that he loves it here, loves playing here, loves the organization. But obviously, if you don't really, try to, maximize his window, I think that's where fans are kind of getting a little bit worried with the front office and their lack there of, getting a secondary star next to him, which I understand. But just to kind of wrap up segment two, it's just a friendship and a mentorship. I think they're just hanging out this offseason. Like last offseason, you saw Cade hang out with Asar Thompson and Jalen Duran. Obviously, Cade is just kind of doing his own thing this year and hanging out with KD. Nothing wrong with that. I mean, players hang out with each other all the time. That was just public for all of us to see and talk about today. Who knows? Who knows? Did want to wrap up into segment three. And I saw a tweet today, and listen, I love living in Michigan. I really like all the fan bases. Like I like interacting with the Red Wings fans, even though I don't really watch as much hockey as I used to. Used to play it a little bit growing up. Grew up playing football. Talked to a lot of Lions content creators that I love in the space that cover the team. And they know the game inside and out. And that's why I follow them. That's why I interact with them because I want to know their opinions. Same with Tigers fans. But I saw this Lions fan today, and he was making a tweet about now that Steve Eiserman's gone, Trajan Langdon should be next on the hot seat. And I crashed out a little bit because I'm under the assumption, and this is just my opinion. I don't know if you guys share the same opinion as me. I felt like what Trajan inherited 2 years ago was a 14-win basketball team that was coming off its worst season in franchise history. It was terrible. I don't really know how he's warranted to be on the hot seat when he really hasn't done anything. Like he's made just like small marginal moves. He hasn't made a big trade yet. Just hasn't. I think the biggest trade he's probably made is a Dennis Schroeder trade, really. Like that's not a big trade. The 6-team trade for John Collins, that's not a big trade. Like, I don't really know how you can have an opinion that just because Trajan didn't make a big splash, because that was kind of like his argument, that this offseason has been very underwhelming and he should be in the hot seat because he didn't get Cade Cunningham and the Pistons a secondary star. Everyone in the East is getting better. LeBron's going to Philly. They got Jaylen Brown, and we got John Collins and Isaiah Joe. Like, he should be in the hot seat. He should be fired. Like, I don't think Trajan has even warranted for his seat to even be hot. I think the only way we can truly judge this new regime, led by Trajan and the front office, is when they actually make a big move. They just haven't done it. Now, we've done daily podcasts. We've heard the players that they've tried to trade for, like Kyrie, like Kawhi, Austin Reeves, Michael Porter Jr., Trey Murphy. Like, they've tried to deal with these teams, and either the teams didn't want to trade those players, the deals fell apart, or the players' camp said, "Hey, we're not going to re-sign with you. Don't trade for us." Like, it's not that he's just sitting on his ass and hasn't done anything this offseason. Are the moves this offseason frustrating coming off a 60-win season and being one game away from winning to make an Eastern Conference Finals against the Knicks? 100% they're underwhelming. But they address more perimeter spacing this year. This will be the most spacing Cade has ever had throughout his young career. You got more secondary ball handler help. Are they flashy, big, sexy moves? No, they're not. I understand the Detroit fan base looks at every Detroit GM in the same lens of they're afraid to make a big move. If anything, Trajan just traded away the heart and soul of the team in Isaiah Stewart. What Detroit GM is, it'd be like if Brad Holmes got rid of Penei Sewell, for example. Like, he just got rid of him, wanted to dump him. Like, and I know comparing Isaiah Stewart to Penei Sewell is probably like a bad example. I don't really follow football that much, but just kind of like the leader that Penei Sewell is. But like, you kind of understand what I'm getting at, right? Like, Trajan traded away Isaiah Stewart, and he was a really big culture piece in that locker room and a very good defender at protecting the paint. Now, availability in the playoffs have been a thing the past 2 years, right? Even though he said he wasn't injured, like, you could tell he wasn't right, like 100%. Just to kind of like wrap up on this rant, like, I don't really think we can judge this regime and Trajan until they actually make a big move. Like, the last big move this organization has made was with a whole different regime under Stan Van Gundy when they pulled the trigger for Blake Griffin. Like, that's the last time this organization has made a big move. And they have gone through a rebuild with Troy Weaver where they wanted to get their salary cap and their books clean. They drafted the foundation that is still here in Cade Cunningham, Asar Thompson, Jalen Duran, and they're trying to build around those three right now. That's what they're trying to do. And I know since Trajan has come in, it has been marginal vets that have helped Cade Cunningham, Asar Thompson, and Jalen Duran grow and develop. I think sometimes we forget how young this team is. And I think a lot of fans look at the offseason this time of year and feel like we're going to be left behind and left in the dust because everyone in the East has gotten a lot better, whether it's Kawhi and the Raptors, whether it's Jaylen Brown and the Philadelphia 76ers. I get it, but no one really saw the Pistons being a 44-win team last season, jumping up to 60 wins this past season, and holding the number one seed in the East from Thanksgiving to the end of the season. No one saw that. Now, I'm not anticipating the Pistons to be a 60-win team again this season, but I still believe they're going to be one of the top-tier teams in the Eastern Conference because you still have Cade Cunningham. You still have Asar Thompson. You have foundation young core players that are going to get better. They're not going to stay the same. They're going to really focus in on internal development. Now, I think the roster is set up to possibly either make a move before the season starts, because that has happened before. There have been trades in September right before the season. There have been trades right before the season. Karl Anthony Towns was traded right before the season to the New York Knicks. Things can happen. Trades can happen. It's early in the offseason in a sense. It really is. Only July 24th. I understand the average Detroit sports fan is upset with the Pistons not making a splash or putting their draft picks or putting their chips in for that player. I understand it. It's frustrating probably as a fan because you don't want to be left behind. But I think where they're I think in pretty good position to, possibly stack some first round draft picks, possibly draft or draft, possibly stack some players to get up to that 30 to 40 million dollar range to try to target somebody. You never know what star is going to be disgruntled this upcoming season. You never know what's going to be available on their desk, during the season, uh, possibly during the trading deadline and where they're currently at. I think the Pistons actually have more of an appetite to make a big move because if they didn't, we wouldn't be up here talking about all the players that they tried and at least called to make a move for. I think the front office and the organization understands that they have to make a move to get Cade Cunningham a secondary creator or a secondary scoring option in the playoffs because the team that is constructed right now is set for good regular season success. I think you're going to have these same problems in the playoffs because teams are going to load up on Cade and it's like, who's going to step up as that secondary guy? We saw what they did with Durant, and he was on their game plan with the Magic and the Cavs to just pack the paint. Who is going to be that secondary player to step up during the playoffs? Is he on the roster right now? I'm not entirely sure. Who could take internal development and have a breakout season? Could it be Asar? Could Durant take another leap? Could Cade take another leap? Could Ron Holland have a breakout season? Like, there's a lot to be positive with this team. And I think it's just this time of year where we see all these other teams make that big trade and it's like a shiny toy and we want that too. I think it's coming. I think this organization has more of an appetite to do it now than they did in previous years because they understand what they have in Cade Cunningham and they understand that you've gone from 14 to 44 to 60. Like, this is going to be a team that is in the Eastern Conference playoff hunt as long as Cade Cunningham is here in the Detroit Pistons jersey and a uniform. Rant done. Rant done. Like, I could probably go for another 10 minutes. I just get really annoyed sometimes with just the average Detroit sports fan. Like, why should Trajan be fired? Like, that shouldn't even be a discussion right now. It shouldn't. It really shouldn't. But before we say goodbye to you guys, we have to hear from our sponsors over at the FanDuel Sportsbook. And this actually ties in perfect with the rant I just had. So it's 2026, 2027 Detroit Pistons regular season wins under over. And they have the Pistons set at 50.5 wins this upcoming season, you guys. And for the over, it's minus 105. And for the under, it is minus 120. I've told you guys before, I think they're going to be at least a top 4 team in the Eastern Conference this upcoming season. I have this team at least winning 50 games. I've had the over. I've already, put 10 on the over. So if it hits, cool. If it doesn't, it's $10. I don't really care. But I have them as a team that is going to hit the over. Before we do wrap up this podcast, I do want to give you guys a little update. So on Sunday at 1 p.m., we're going to be joined by Zarek from Real Bowly Ball. He's a credentialed NBA photographer and a reporter. We're going to be talking to him about the Detroit Pistons Summer League because he was in Vegas. He was able to see Abuka, Corey, and Yagana and Yenso up close. So we'll be talking to him about the Summer League and the Detroit Pistons offseason. He's always very insightful and knowledgeable. So again, that is going to be on Sunday at 1 p.m. live on our YouTube channel. If you want to tap on in and watch us live, talk about the Detroit Pistons Summer League and the offseason and probably, who knows, a couple more topics because we always go down rabbit holes for whatever reason when we do have podcasts together. Again, that'll be at Sunday, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But we're probably not going to be doing a podcast on Saturday unless there's something like groundbreaking, like Durant signs or, there's a trade. Who knows? But we're probably going to take Saturday off, and we'll see you guys again on Sunday. But until next time, you guys, take care. Peace. Stay safe. And as always, go Pistons.